Without further ado, the very first question. So
Mhm.
imagine you're somewhere at some networking event, I don't know, something, and you meet somebody and they say, "Oh, Jacob, I've heard all about your professional career. I know all about your CV. I've read your LinkedIn. I see what you're doing, really awesome, but who are you as a person?" What would you say?
That's an excellent question. Um, it's funny how much we identify with who we are professionally, huh?
Yeah.
Um, I I am an so a couple of years ago I would have answered I'm an adventurer at heart. Like I absolutely love, of course, travel or not of course, but I absolutely love traveling. I love living in other places. I love meeting people from across the world. I live to experience, and I live to for my life to be one big adventure. And my professional career is just one very extremely important, but one link in that. And everything I've done also in my professional career is simply to experience and to kind of expand my horizons. And the one reason I say that I would have said that a couple of years ago is today I would come with that with the additional one that I'm also a dad, and it's insane how big of a part of an identity that kind of becomes. And I know I see people even writing on Twitter and LinkedIn or whatever, and I do think it's still a bit corny, and I don't do that myself, but I see why people do it because it's probably the most amazing part of my life is my 2-year-old son. So yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And so well, yeah, I mean, so there's two elements that come up, right? That you're an adventurer at heart, but then also this title is and role as father has now come to the forefront. How do you feel like those two things interact with each other? Like, has being a father impacted how you adventure or move through the world?
Yeah, I mean, in very practical circumstances, it has because traveling with a kid is slightly more difficult. That being said, like our son has been in I think 10 different countries so far in his 2 years of life, right? So, and I do think that well, and adventure like again, you tend to automatically think adventure travel like those are the same thing. I think that traveling is just one part of adventuring.
Yeah.
And for me as an individual, like experiencing his development and experiencing his everyday life is also an adventure to me. It's like, whoa, having kids is like this thing that, and now we're going a little bit deeper into that. I mean, theoretically, conceptually, you know that like so many people do it, so it must be pretty all right. Because why wouldn't they do it? I mean, of course, there's a biological incentive to do it, but like, man, I don't think I was prepared for how amazing it was. And also how shitty and how tough, yada yada. Sure, but I was kind of prepared for the hard side. I wasn't prepared for the amazing side. And that is an adventure of its own. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't have kids of my own, but I've heard, I've heard how difficult it is, of course, right? And it's an adventure you can't turn back from.
Yeah.
Once you're on that adventure, it's
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
but to hear that the amazing side has caught you by surprise is also
Yeah,
yeah,
no. It's definitely like the love and the everyday like experiencing life through the eyes of a kid is like, whoa, you look at things in different ways and stuff. And I can't like one of my biggest dreams ever is to kind of travel the world, like rip out a year and travel the world with my kid or kids at that time and wife, of
yeah,
course. So yeah.
really cool. Really, really cool. And so you said, of course, before becoming a father, you would have described yourself as an adventurer. Um, and you said that travel is just one part of that. You also see that it's more encompassing. Have you always been like this? Or did something
Hmm.
push you towards this my
It's a good question. Like at least I cannot see where it. Let me say it differently. I can't see where it started. Like, I can't exactly tell a starting point, which of course, I mean, I don't know whether people are always in a certain way, but at least for as long as I can recall back, yeah, like I've been curious always and wanting to experience stuff always. And I think again, when do you truly start? Like again, I guess you kind of truly start making bigger life decisions post high school and from that time and onwards, like I studied I studied in 3 different countries, and like also lived abroad in I think 5 different countries so far and stuff. So 5 or 6 different countries, and have been driven by, I've been extremely ambitious always, been driven by career choices and by making the best of it. But I've not been very monetarily driven. And a lot of my choices have been driven by experiencing and by driving my career upwards, or uh, but more from a kind of experience perspective in driving a high level of challenge and experiencing something new, rather than going for the job that would have yielded the highest kind of financial return.
Yeah. 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 And did you, because I also recognize myself in that very ambitious and also I don't know if I would call myself an all-time adventurer, but when I'm in the right circumstances, I will take that really,
Mm,
really big leap. And so it's not um growing up, I would try, bigger things, but not all the time. I would also kind of play it safe
mm,
sometimes. But then if I'm
yeah,
in the right circumstances or um kind of like in transitions, I can either see like kind of like if I'm backed into a corner, then I'll take a really, really huge step.
big
Like,
leap. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
like, yeah, like moving
No,
across
that
the,
may.
yeah,
Yeah, like that is cool, right? Moving from the States to The Hague, like that's a big move, and switching
yeah,
careers, and like I mean, those are really massive moves.
yeah, yeah. And I think, and I don't know, I told somebody like, because I really saw my life. Okay, if I stay here, this is what my life looks like, or if I
Yeah.
take the chance, this is what could happen. And I
Yes.
think so many people, if they had seen it so as clearly as I did in that moment, they would have taken the chance because in that moment for me, it was, what was necessary. But
Yeah.
do you notice then, because okay, I'll spoil some of your CV. You're a co-founder. You've created a lot of really cool things, and the life of any entrepreneur is radically intense.
Yes.
From
Yes.
from what I've
Yes.
heard. And also
That's the understatement of the century. Yeah, yeah.
it's also very uncertain, right? It's either going to be
Yes.
amazing, it's either going to not be amazing, or somewhere in between. And so, have you always been willing to take those big risks as well? Because I think, you can be an adventurer and go to a different country.
Yeah.
Um, but I think taking those risks on an entrepreneurial level or
I think what you said there, like I oh, so many thoughts. First thought, um, what you say about like being able to see a life if you stayed versus going broad and stuff, that resonates a lot. I think so. After university, I was in consulting for close to 4 years in what's now Bain company in the Nordics, and I could like the reason I left there was because I could see my life. I could see the entire rest of my life playing out, and it was fucking boring, or it was extremely predictable, right? Like,
yeah,
and I do think that predictability scared the hell out of me. And I was just not, and bored me to death. So I wanted something different, which at that time meant taking a leap and starting taking a friend's offer to start the local arm of digital marketing agency in Indonesia and Jakarta, even though I had no digital marketing experience and never been to Indonesia before. Um, so that was like the one reflection as to your point on like, hey, like seeing your life unfold in front of you. I do think that might be a wake up call to people, or at least like if I mean maybe that's perfectly fine, and some people are quite comfortable in knowing how things will play out and like
yeah,
that level of control that this kind of creates.
yeah,
To your question on like whether I've always been like this, or so two more reflections on that. I think like I come from a solid upper middle class family. I think
mhm,
that that's super nice. I also think it comes with certain responsibilities to utilize that level of security that you get from coming from a background like that. Like I knew that like if everything falls apart, I could always come back to my parents, right? And they created that solid base for me that allowed me to take risks. Not just allowed me, but almost encouraged me to take risks, because the downside of those risks was incredibly, well, it was actually rather limited, right? What's the worst thing, especially when you don't have kids? What's the worst thing that can truly happen? Like, that's you move back with mom and dad. Okay, is it really that bad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything's relative, but I mean, it's not the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of comes to my second point, which is I think people are inherently bad at assessing risks. People think that things that seem super risky, like, oh my God, you moved to a different country and then you started building something new, and like you took a salary cut. Oh my God, that's horrible. Like, how risky was that truly? Like, I don't think it was really risky. It was an adventure and it was crazy, and it was definitely a big challenge. But was it risky? I don't think it was. So that's kind of my second point, is just like, my 2 points there is like, people who come from a solid base almost have an obligation to utilize that solid base, and to get the most out of life. And secondly, just be real in how you assess risks, because I think people just tend to over-index on them.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. But also like the first thing that sticks out is you mentioned it's this obligation, right? You have this safety net in a way. Um,
Mm.
that not everybody has the privilege of having. And so you mentioned this obligation. And so can you expound a bit upon this obligation that you see?
Yeah, like, again, one of my close friends comes from a working class family with way less, like, with no financial security, and like, he focused a lot on, like, just growing up, and after his studies and stuff, focused a lot on ensuring that his family had a safety that he didn't have when growing up. And
Yeah.
he's very often told me, like, Jacob, you have this, like, again, you have that security, and just based on that, there's no reason not to go live the dreams that you truly want to live, right? I mean, if you want to experience something, but you feel like you're holding yourself, but you're holding yourself back because, I just want to build a little bit more of a nest egg. I just want a little bit more financial security. Like, no, like, you kind of have that from a base, and given that you have that from a base, like, then you, of all people, have that responsibility to try to get the most out of your life, or to get the maximum out of life, based on what your desires are, and not kind of falsely restrain yourself or kind of reduce your ambitions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's very interesting.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking back in like different moments of my own life where I have
Yeah.
still held my own ambitions back, so that maybe for me a bit social safety is more of a thing for me. So kind of a bit adjust more to groups and stuff. And
Hmm.
now years later, I'm like, that was really I wish I wouldn't have done that. But of course, hindsight is always 2020.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. How would social safety? What do you kind of define as social safety, and how did that impact your life?
yeah. So social cues don't always come naturally to me. So it's really been something that I've had to understand and study for myself. Um, but there would be things that I would be really enthusiastic about or really want to go for, where then the average of the group would be fine, like on a 10-point scale, right? They'd be fine with a 7. And I'm like, no, let's go for 11.
Yeah.
And and then you realize, oh wait, if you're always striving for 11 and they're fine with the 7, there's going to be this growing divide a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I totally see what you're saying. I
just
totally see
hide
what you're saying.
just hide it and just be okay, let's go for an 8. Yeah, 8 sounds good. And
Yeah. Yeah. Falsely restricting yourself in a way, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's
Uh,
of course, yeah, you learn and you
you learn and you grow, right? That's
yeah,
life.
for sure.
Um,
And so, okay, um, so and I'm thinking back on this adventure, and you say that you get to see the world, of course, through your son's eyes.
hmm.
And of course, you've mentioned that you've taken him. You said I think 10 countries, which is amazing. That's probably more than I've done in 10 years. Uh, but how are you? Is there anything that you're doing now? I mean, he's only 2, but you know that it starts early. The atmosphere you build for your son, the things that he picks up on. I'm sure he's a sponge. Is there any, like, what are the things that you're, yeah, either trying to teach or very
Yeah,
mindful?
no, it's a good question. Like, I think it's more like I don't think that I'm in any ways a paragon of parenting advice, so I'm not even gonna go there. But I think we as parents are pretty relaxed and oh yeah, so I think there's one thing is just like our own desires matter. Like my wife's and my desires to travel and stuff like matter. I hear a lot of parents say, "Oh, but they won't even remember going to this place, and therefore we shouldn't take them there before they are like 3, 4-ish, right? Because what will they get out of it?" I'm like, well, okay, maybe they won't get too much out of it, but I'll get something out of it. And I do think that there's a certain like there's also a value for the kid to feel the happiness and excitedness of his or her parents, right?
Yeah,
Um, I also think probably like, but again, people who know way more about bringing up kids than me will know that better than I do. But I think that there's just a certain what can you say, skill of being able to being flexible on like whether you can sleep in hotel rooms, whether you're like feeling that traveling is fine. I'm talking about the kid, right? So I spoke with someone that was parent of a 4 and an 8-year-old, and they were like, yeah, we're really afraid of whether they like now going traveling for like 3 weeks, whether the 8-year-old would be okay with sleeping in different hotel rooms. I'm like, Jesus Christ, the number of hotel rooms that Elias, my son, have been sleeping in, I never even gave that a second thought. So yeah, so
yeah,
something about flexibility of mindset from the earliest of years. I guess the
yeah,
counterpoint is like something about stability and routines and stuff. But I don't know. Again, I'm not a parenting expert, so
yeah.
I
I'm
hope
not
you'll
a
turn out
parent.
right.
I can imagine there's ways to still bring some of those elements also in when you're traveling, but
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there'll be so much judgment. I guess people listening to the podcast, some will judge heavily, like, how can you even bring a kid up in that environment? And others will like nodding and saying, yeah, that's exactly right. So, a lot of opinions on how to bring up kids.
yeah, a lot of opinions on a lot of things, actually.
A
It's
lot of opinions on a lot of things. Yeah,
you
exactly.
can't
So,
win. That's what I'm
I can't win.
just can't win. So you just got to do what's
Can't win.
best for you. Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
So,
yeah.
okay, and one of the and because you mentioned this flexibility, but also this routine, and it's of course we have a lot of conversations with facilitators.
hmm
And we notice there's uh, yeah, a very unique and beautiful skill set that comes with facilitation. Um,
Mm.
how did you, yeah, how did you find your way into facilitation? Was because I don't even know if I knew it was a word 8 years, 6 years ago. So how did you
Mm.
stumble into this? I don't know many kids that grow up saying, "Oh, I want to be a facilitator." Um,
No, and it's a good question. I guess then I'll see these spoil a bit more, right? So I mean, again, started out in consulting, and in consulting you do a lot of workshops. It's a big way. I mean, that there are engagements that are very workshop focused, transformation engagements, process optimization engagements, that are very focused on individual workshops where you go around to teams and workshop through processes with them. And then there are engagements where you need to understand something as a consultant, and you have to workshop people through a process for you as consultant to learn and get information, right? So we just did a ton of workshops for everything from strategy to transformation engagements. So that was kind of the first time I encountered, like, I think my very first project as a brand new 22-year-old consultant was an extremely workshop heavy transformation project on an insurance company.
oh wow. Okay.
So I was kind of like putting up, big brown papers on the walls with templates and putting sticky notes up there, and like me as a brand new consultant was like taking photos and making them into PowerPoints overnight, and then resharing them the next day and creating reports out of that. So that was my first kind of that was me seeing others facilitate and also encountering the words of facilitation there. That kind of grew then from into after consulting again, I started this digital marketing agency in Indonesia, we utilized workshops quite a lot there for digital marketing customers on creating their strategy, right? So we'd workshop their strategy through with their marketing teams and then create the strategy from there, especially outlining different initiatives that those strategies were based on. And facilitation was an incredibly important skill there because it was not just about us coming there, showcasing or creating the strategy from top down and pushing it down to the teams. It was both a way for us to gain the information that we needed to create the digital marketing strategy together with the individuals there. And it was a way to make sure that there was buy-in from the stakeholders of those companies when we created it. So again, those were the next 3.5 years of my life, 4 years of my life in Indonesia and later on Hong Kong, doing these, doing especially digital marketing strategy projects with tons of big clients like L'Oreal, Dairy Farm out there, Google. Um,
Yeah.
so that was incredibly interesting, and I learned even more there, right? And there I was in a senior position, so very much leading many of these workshops, or designing them together with the team who would then individually go out and do them. Um, and then that kind of followed up when I went back to Denmark again in 2018, and did a startup within content discovery on gaming platforms, streaming platforms like Twitch and stuff. Didn't work out, but the team and I we stuck together, and then we in 2020 when COVID struck, we started trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And we wanted to do something about remote work, and we did that through, or we tried to figure out exactly what we wanted to do about remote work by doing workshops on remote work for teams that had suddenly been pushed remotely by COVID, didn't know how to work together remotely. And that was, where I used facilitation as a skill again to because I built that over the years, but from a software development lens. So okay, like there's a challenge here in doing those workshops in Zoom. I was using Zoom, or we were using Zoom together with Miro, Mentimeter, Kahoot, a lot of different tools to kind of create interactivity, PowerPoint, of course. And that just that was just very complicated, and I didn't feel that I could create the same energy in those online workshops that I was able to do in the in-person workshops that I'd been running over the years.
Yeah, it's definitely
Um,
entirely different.
yeah, exactly. It's very different. So that
Yeah.
was kind of what started Butter, and the which was a video conferencing tool built for facilitation and workshops. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and I was thinking because Skype recently closed. I don't know if you were aware of this, but I went back
Mm-hmm.
through. I was well, I was emotional. I was crying. Look back all
Mm-hmm.
through my life of Skype, which has been around for a long time,
Yep.
and now this thing has gone. But in some way, this ability to stay connected. I mean, of course, we understand the importance of staying connected digitally, but that to see all those memories, it really, yeah, touched me in a way I did not expect. Like, oh, let me think
Yeah.
through. Oh, now I'm crying. Okay, what's happening?
Yeah. 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 No, I totally resonate with that.
But okay. And I also was because I was a student in 2020. I was doing my master's.
Hmm.
Um, and those teachers, bless their hearts, they were doing online classes for some. So
Yeah.
they were doing hybrid. Some of the students would be in person, some of the students would be remote, which is to me still, I struggle more with hybrid than
Yeah.
entirely online or entirely in person.
Yes.
They were really in the thick of it, figuring it out. Um,
Yes.
but
Hybrid is just the most difficult one to crack as a facilitator.
yeah, I really think so. But having these tools, because even already from 2020, now there's so many more tools. Butter is really fun, really delightful to use, and yeah, it makes a big difference as a facilitator.
Yep.
It's-
Yeah.
yeah,
No, 100%, 100%. And I think, so much stuff changed, right? In 2020, you'd have so when we started Butter, I think we did in the first half year, we talked with 400 or 500 facilitators, did a lot of interviews to learn kind of what we should build and what the challenges people had facilitating workshops
yeah,
online. And it was very obvious that there's an old guard of experienced online facilitators that have been doing remote facilitation for years and years before COVID struck. They're very experienced. They had their tool stack set up. They were both experienced, but also a little bit rigid because they're like, hey, we found a way that works before, so we're just gonna stick to that. And then there was a group of facilitators that had been used to doing this almost solely in person for years before, and were suddenly had to rediscover their tool stack and rediscover what it meant to do workshops online versus doing, or to do facilitation online versus
Yeah.
doing it in person. And those were the ones that we initially hit very much with butter because they were open to trying out new tools. They were open to figuring out what their tool stack should be like. So it was really interesting to see that development in facilitators. And then post COVID, I mean, now it's freaking 5 years since COVID struck, right? I mean,
Yeah.
truly does fly, and you can just see people have established, like, as you say, like there's so many more tools, but in many ways there are also fewer tools because like it was like there was a big divergence when COVID struck. A lot of people tried a lot of different tools to kind of figure out what their tool stack to be like, and now there's almost been like a convergence again into a smaller set of tools that actually turned out to work for people in facilitation. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're refining their
They're
toolbox.
refining it 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And because of course, like you mentioned, there was the old guard and then the people that were new to the online element. Do you think that facilitation in itself has changed because of COVID, besides the online in-person element?
Yes, I think a big piece is the digitization of facilitation.
Mhm.
Again, people who used to do only in-person sessions um, weren't always very digital pre-COVID. They weren't using a lot of digital tools, etc. Like another tool that grew a lot was Miro, and I don't know whether you're aware of it, but I mean, we recently Butter became part of Miro. So um,
I used Miro
people
before Nero. It was real-time board.
It was real time board. Ah, you're one of the old real
Real-time
time board
board.
users.
Yeah.
Ah, that's so crazy. That's so cool. Yeah, and like seriously, so many people were doing workshops in person. They were not using any digital tools, and I do think that that's a big change. Like now, even a lot of people got used to using Miro and other digital tools during COVID, and now when they go back and do it in person, they still use those tools.
Yeah.
So that's I think a big change, and I do think again going back to my original like first experience with workshops where we put a paper up on the wall and then I had to plop stuff into PowerPoint overnight, right? I mean, there's so many ways, even if you're using paper on the wall, so many ways to digitize this super fast through, for instance, Miro and AI, just taking a picture and then getting all the sticks in there, etc.
Mhm.
And I think that that's offloaded facilitators a lot when it comes to kind of post-session recapping of the sessions themselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the big changes that have happened is the digitization of facilitation.
Mhm.
I also think people have just come way more aware that, hey, we can actually run these workshops online. And I see so many people that have been more geographically restrained for before, like independent facilitators, consultancies, etc., that were like doing stuff within their immediate vicinity or neighborhood that are now serving a worldwide client base because they've figured out, hey, like we can easily run these workshops online
Yeah.
and serve people way broader than before.
Yeah, it's and that to me is one of the most fascinating things because even when I moved to Europe 2016, right? You're living abroad, you're finding ways to connect and stay in touch. Um, but even then I mean, it could have also just been the environment that I come from, right? Not so many people move abroad, um, where I was from and that type of um but even now seeing how much more global things have become for everyone is just really fascinating, really yeah, exciting because there's a lot of unknowns and yeah, new possibilities.
I agree. It really is. It really is.
Yeah. And did because of course you mentioned that you've been a founder of a few things, you've tried different things, right? You moved to Indonesia to
Mhm.
build a digital marketing company. Are there any um new projects, either like personal projects or like new risks or new things that you're trying out for yourself, new things that you're of course, you're always learning.
Mm.
That's the nature of being a successful professional.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great question. I mean, so very concretely, right? I mean, after we became part of Miro, it's a little over 3 months ago now. I've been working hard on building out workshops and facilitation capabilities within Miro.
Mhm.
So, and that's my big focus now is just making Miro work better for workshops.
Yeah.
Um, so that's probably the biggest, and even and the funny thing is Miro is already used a lot for workshops. But we're still seeing a lot of the different behavioral patterns within Miro being, people plopping stickies on a frame, right? And that's like all the exercises in a, 5-day workshop might be just people plopping stickies on frames. So creating way more interactivity and creating way more dynamism in workshops done in Miro is one of the things that I'm really excited about and that we're working on now. Second piece is just building AI much more deeply into workshops. I mean, come on, everyone talks about AI these days. Of course, we and I are thinking about that too.
Mhm.
But I do think that there's a big like way of thinking about, oh, what role should AI serve for facilitators within facilitation?
Yeah.
Um, and again, there it's like thinking about before, during, and after the session, like what's the role of AI? Like before, AI helping plan out the session and make it bespoke and help out with figuring out exactly what the agenda could look like and what activities could go, what kind of framework can be utilized, etc. During the session, which is really interesting, is how AI can help cluster, like basically be decrease the time spent for the facilitator during the session or the mind space spent by the facilitator during the session on like again clustering ideas or creating materials to carry from one piece of the session to another.
Yeah.
Could be highlighting the facilitator to lulls in the engagement from the participants, etc. And then post session, it's very much about kind of pulling all those insights together, making sure that there's clear deliverables, but also making sure that those deliverables kind of get implemented in the organization. So it's like this whole idea of an AI co-facilitator is something that I think about a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I don't think imagination is talked quite enough.
Yeah,
Because if you can imagine it, then we can get AI to help reach that, but AI isn't going to necessarily imagine it.
imagine it for you. No, I agree.
Yeah, so then imagining all of that is must be quite exciting because for me, I always prefer to facilitate alongside somebody.
Yeah,
Um, so if I could
yeah,
also,
100%.
yeah, for sure. Am I being crazy right now, or did I just really see this?
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. It's really tough facilitating alone, right? You don't have anyone to kind of play ball with. You don't have anyone like a second pair of eyes and ears to kind of hear stuff, and you don't have anyone. You can't rest your mind or even like like it's very hard to simultaneously reflect and keep a
Yeah,
conversation going, right? So many things that become much harder if you're one versus two, right?
yeah, yeah. And do you have, because I mean, every facilitator listening to this conversation will understand and relate to a lot of these things. But if there's somebody, and I think most people understand what a facilitator is, especially if they've gone to a workshop. But is there any like analogies, or if someone's like, "Oh, a facilitator, what's that like?" Is there
Mm.
any simple way that
Yeah.
you found to describe? Because I still can't find a simple way to package and explain that like
Yeah. I
experience.
mean, I hear you, and the best way I've heard is a facilitator is someone that helps a group of people go from point A to point B.
Mhm.
And that again could be a lot of different things. Point A to point B, it could be facilitating the creation of. I think there are two overall types of sessions that can be facilitated. One is solution-based sessions, and the other skill-based sessions.
Mhm.
So again, a facilitator can either carry a group of people from point A to point B and help them create a solution or create a product
Yeah.
or create a process. So that would be one way to facilitate. The other is skill-based facilitation, where the facilitation is not about the outcome of the process, of the outcome of going from point A to point B. It's more about the process or the learnings that come from going from point A to point B. So traditional training sessions where you learn a framework or something like that, but learning through experiential design, for instance, that's also very much facilitation, but it's focused on making sure that the group of people learn that particular framework, for instance.
Yes. Yeah. 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 So, and it's always very interesting because of course, I teach at a university, but then some of the times in the class will be then solution based, right? You're design students, you need to design a
Yes.
solution. But then some of it is, okay, you really need to learn this theory or this framework. And it's also very interesting to me how that notice a big difference in facilitating for the solution based also versus the skill based.
The skill based, yeah. And I even like it's funny because the example that you showcase there, like sure that you facilitate to create a solution, but actually it's the learning of how to create that solution that's the most important outcome very often in university, right? So it's like a combination of those two processes. Yeah.
True. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
uh.
So, what did I wrote down something here. You mentioned in the very start that that when you were consulting, you kind of saw the predictability.
Hmm.
Um, and that was like, okay, this for me isn't going to work out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And are there any um yeah, and I guess you just mentioned AI. So I was going to ask like if there's any we call them bears in the road sometimes like like or like these obstacles or oh okay, this is going to be um maybe not difficult but kind of something we have to wrestle with. You mentioned AI.
Yeah. So I mean, in general for facilitation,
Yeah.
or
Or for your current role. Like how are you staying? Yeah.
yeah, like oh, there's so much stuff, right? I think like for my current role, like and products in general, I think developing new products for facilitation and in general will be not difficult, but let me take it differently. Miro is now a 14-year-old product. There's so much new stuff and so many exciting things that we are building and that we could build. I also think that navigating older products will be more difficult than building new products, as things are at the moment. And we need to be incredibly aware of that in older products like the one that we're building. I do think we have a lot of superpowers and a lot of knowledge and a big user base that gets very excited about what we're building. So I do think that there's a lot of ways where we can do this, but I do think that being extremely ambitious about what we're building today and extremely knowledgeable about our users is super important for us not to stumble. And that's kind of also the remit of what I'm doing at the moment. And if we do stumble, like we can very easily lose, and that's a scary thought for a big company.
Yeah, true. True. There's a bit more on the line. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bit more than that. So I hope that kind of answered the question.
Yeah. It reminded me, I can't remember the phrase they used, but basically that big companies, not, and I'm speaking in general here, not about any specific companies, but they'll be like, yeah, we need new innovation, we need new things. And so then people will bring it like, no, not like that. We're or jump through all of these hoops. So to find
Yeah.
that flexibility and innovation element is managed better in
Incre-
some cases than others. Yeah.
I totally agree. And like, man, I'm so glad we joined Miro and not another company in that, because that flexibility is definitely there and the ambition is definitely there. And the innovation potential is definitely there, right? So all of the desire and the willingness and the direction and in many cases also the capabilities are definitely there. But it's still a large company, right? So it's 1,500 people or so. So there's a different way of navigating, or you need to be aware of a different way of navigating than if you're a 10, 15 person startup, right?
And
And
how many?
today, because of AI, small companies are able to kind of punch way above your weight. So, I mean, I'd be scared, even in a 1,500 person company, I'd be scared of a 15-person company. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And how many people were at Butter before you guys joined with Miro?
We were around 10 people in the end when we joined in. Yeah. So it was
Okay.
small.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so it's from a 10-person team to 1,500 is
Yes. That is a big change. It's a big
yeah.
change.
quite the grow up. So, yes. So, okay, and this is maybe a different kind of question, but if you weren't a
Mhm.
facilitator, what do you think? And I mean, of course, you're also a founder, right? You're also building new things, trying new things out. If you weren't doing this, what do you think you would be doing with your life?
Oh, I think often about that. Um, Overall, the reflections, wow, I'm happy, and wow, I'm lucky, and wow, I'm just doing the right stuff, right? But it's a big thing, right? And it's so important to continuously ask yourself. And I think that was kind of what I was asking myself back in consulting when I was like, "Pff, fuck this, I don't want to do this for another couple of years, right? Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to do something different, right? Um, but there is a certain something about just building stuff on my own would probably be the one thing. Like now that's a bit there's a bit of a romanticizing of these so-called indie makers today, of like individual people that sit and build stuff on their own and kind of make a living based on that. But that would probably be the thing that I would be doing, and then trying to set up my life so I'd be even more geographically, or even less geographically restricted.
Mm,
Um, so traveling even more. I will say, like with family and stuff, it's not, and it's actually not kids, it's more like grandparents and stuff become super
sure.
important when you have kids, right? So being close to
Yeah.
them is amazing. But I think yes, so that's probably the one thing that I've romanticized a few times, is like this whole idea of being fully independent and just building my own stuff and getting that in the hands of users. But it's
Yeah.
close enough to what I'm doing at the moment. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Bigger scale.
Oh yeah, another thing I'd always wanted to do is teaching. Like I do envy you in being able to teach at university and stuff. Like that's one of the things that I also wanted to do with my life at one point.
Really?
Yeah,
Maybe we'll bring you in for a guest lecture. So
that would be wonderful. You just ask and I'll be there.
it's funny because I'm on the uh you know I studied design, I studied social innovation, and then the first job that I had right out of that was teaching. So I haven't been in the quote unquote industry.
Mm.
It's just been teaching. So I'm also looking at people in the industry like, oh, I wish I could try that. And so it's always funny to yeah.
To see the other. Yeah, I think a healthy mix of doing of getting one and the other is good. And one day you might go to the industry and try that for a few years as well, right? It's nice. Like life is about experiencing. Life is about adventure. So yeah, just not getting stuck in the same rut.
Yeah, exactly. We've been talking to a lot of people lately connected to stories, either storytelling or
Mm,
sharing how to uh, teaching how to tell better stories.
mm,
That's one of the things that we're noticing in the conversations is that we always come across how that will differentiate us from AI is the stories that we're able to tell from our own lived
interesting. Yep.
experience. And so you're mentioning this experience, and so it's coming to mind again, right? The more experiences I can have, the more stories I'm also going to be able to tell. And
Yep.
it's,
Yep.
I think
Yeah,
that's
and you'll be able to kind of connect dots from various weird like corners of your experiences. Like, whoa, I did not expect that this thing that I experienced in Korea like 10 years ago would actually be relevant here today, right? But right. So, yeah.
and is because you've worked with a lot of creative people, you've yeah, facilitated, you come across a lot of people. Is there something that you notice? Um, I'm trying to think how to best phrase this question. Is there is there something that you notice either between or a skill set or a mindset that sets the really creative people apart?
Ah, it's a
Um,
really good question. I'm
yeah.
gonna like again just creating some context. I mean, I'm not I do not consider myself as a creative person, or being creative is not part of my personal identity.
Really?
Uh, yes.
Okay.
I'm not the one who comes up with all the ideas in a startup. I'm not the one who, creates new concepts and stuff like that. But I'm very good at channeling creative energy. Like I'm very good at getting very creative people to do the best of their to do the best work of their lives and kind of carve the path or like remove obstacles in their path, if
Mm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, that's why, I mean, of the three co-founders, I mean, I had a design and product co-founder, I had a tech co-founder, and I was the CEO co-founder of Butter, doing marketing and growth. Um, but like my finest job was just making sure that there was enough money in the bank, and that that they could focus on just building awesome products.
Mm.
Um, so what again, I consider both of my co-founders to be incredibly creative people and absurdly talented people. And I think a number of things set them apart from the average. Like one thing is just proactivity, just being daring to do stuff, right? It might seem small, but so many people just like you mentioned before with your example of the sevens, right? So many people converge to the mean. And that is so fucking shitty. That is how shitty products get built. That is how like non-creative stuff, generic stuff, AI, generic stuff gets created, right? So you need to be proactive and you need to be brave, right, to set yourself apart.
Mm.
That's a very big trait. You need to be like some people call it taste, other people call it being opinionated, right? That is also something you need to have. A lot of people talk about in the era of AI, the taste will be the most important thing, and I think a taste is just another word for having a very strong opinion on what is good and what is not good.
Yeah.
And then combining that with being proactive and being brave is like being able to express that.
Mhm.
Uh, and those are things, so proactive, brave, having taste, being opinionated. Those are the things that I see in truly excellent creative people. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
That's
some of the things.
and I've the proactive and the being brave, of course, is um something that I see more often mentioned, right? In creativity, but the having the viewpoint or the opinion or the taste and then being able to express that
Oh
is
yeah, communication, that's an extra point on that. That's very true, right? Being able to express it is like, and why this is great and stuff, right? I mean, that's also so important because if you're alone then and cannot bring other people along that journey, then you're alone, right?
yeah,
But like, oh man, you should see Chris, my design co-founder, right? I mean, just the way he thinks and the extremely strong opinions he has and the extremely strong taste he exhibits is absolutely incredible. Uh, and even like again from Adam, my tech co-founder, that's of course more on the technical side, but even on product side, like he also has extremely strong opinions on product and are able to express them very clearly. And like his communication skills are second to very few technical people I've ever met. So like you're
yeah,
very right on the whole communication piece is just so important.
yeah. And it's and I didn't realize how hard it is sometimes to articulate what makes something good or not. So even when you're watching a
Yes,
film, oh yeah, it was a good film. Oh, I didn't like it. Okay, but
yes,
why?
yes,
Elaborate on that. And I consider myself someone who is a bit more, yeah, a bit more able to communicate clearly. And even I really struggled with this. And I'm like, oh, this, I did not expect this from myself. So being able to share and bring other people into to stand alongside you and say, this is how I'm looking at it, look at
yes.
it the same way with me.
Oh, you're so like, oh, there's so many elements to what you're saying now. One thing is, I think writing and writing skills are super important and becoming more like I do really fear for the writing skills of people in the world of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I write a lot and I write it like I'd much rather do a write up or a memo than doing a deck, a PowerPoint deck or whatever when I have to explain something.
Okay.
Um, so that's one piece, and that is combined with like problem solving or first principles thinking as to what you're saying on like being able to actually disaggregate why is something good and not. And
Mhm.
then lastly, understanding like almost empathy or understanding where your users are or where your readers or recipients of the communication are in terms of like, I mean, some people might not be great readers, might not want to read. So you have to find other ways to communicate this, or
Yeah.
they might want that in their email. They might not want a separate PDF file, whatever, right? But there's a lot of ways of like thinking through the entire communication process that I think are incredibly important.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of the things, I mean, random connection, but one of the things with the Obama campaign way back many
Mm,
years ago was how
mm,
spot on all of the communication was. And
yes.
I had just turned 18, so as an American, right? It's your first year to vote. Obama's campaigning, the
Yep.
everything is sparkly and shiny. You're 18, about to graduate high school. And and I just remember being amazed at how clear and cohesive all of that
Yes.
communication was. And I think,
Yes.
and when companies can also have such a clear, like you said, people might not want to read a memo. People might be
Yep.
more visual or, whatever.
Yes.
And
Exactly, exactly. But again, back to your cohesive point, like you need to both then be able to translate that memo into a video format, into visual format, into short form text or whatever format, right? To where your recipients are.
yeah, yeah. And it just made me think of this book. So I just looked it up. There's a really great book called The Impossibility of Silence, Writing for Designers, Artists, and Photographers. And this is a design professor out of Japan. He's not Japanese, but his name is Ian Lynham. And this book was written in such a I read a lot of books, a lot of books. This has been one of my special interests since a young kid. I have never read a book that has felt so naturally written. It felt like I was sitting on the deck, drinking an iced tea, having a conversation with this guy.
Yes.
And yeah, the impossibility of
I gotta
silence.
read this. I got it here. All right,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
And
That's awesome.
yeah. And so he mentions, of course, he's a little bit more from about designers, but just
Yep.
overall about communication. And this book has really emphasized the importance of being able to communicate what you're doing well, but also then from a creative perspective. And yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. Like, yeah, building on that, right? I mean, the two books that probably shaped my communication thinking the most. One
Yeah.
thing is the Pyramid Principle by Barbara Mento. It's a consultant classic. Like,
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet. Yeah.
it's so good. Like, oh, and like just that overall way of communicating is something that I've tried to build into my practice for the past 10, 15 years.
Mhm.
The other one is Problem Solving 101, I think it's called. Yeah, yeah. So Problem Solving 101 is like called like I think it's called a simple book for smart people. So that was this Japanese McKinsey consultant like 15, 20 years ago that he wrote this book for kids, like basically like trying to translate, hey, how does McKinsey do problem solving, but putting that in the words of kids. And
Wow.
like even as an adult reading this, it's just like I think the best way of explaining complex problem solving and first principles thinking I've ever read. So and so that's also like again being able to clearly understand the ideas that you want to express and then being able to express those ideas clearly. For me, combined the best way of being able to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and especially what you mentioned with AI, that you fear our collective writing skills, it's, I think this would be a really not simple, it takes work, but a very clear cut way to how to start making yourself stand out. Because if you can communicate, yeah, then,
I agree.
and my dad has
I
done
agree.
also very well in his career, in part because he's such a good communicator.
Mm,
And he just continued to rise to the top. I mean, he's smart and dedicated, but because of his communication, that was a huge part of it. So growing up, it was always, okay, make sure you can explain this. Okay, I just explained it now,
yes.
bring it back.
Yes. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, yeah. And like as you say, there's a lot of smart and dedicated people who are not great communicators who will fail because of that lack of skill. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sadly, yeah. So, yes. Okay. So then I'll ask, I mean, a lot of different areas we could dive into, but um I guess I'll ask this question. If you could, well, looking back on your childhood and your life growing up, right? You mentioned that you grew up in Denmark and you've lived in different countries, you've studied abroad, you've taken risks. Are there any early signs that now looking back from where you are now, looking back, maybe on a memory as a kid or a story you hear from your family or something. You're like, ah, I should have known that I was already like this because when I was already doing this at a young age.
Hmm. So hard, right? Because you tend to retrofit stuff into
It's
your
true.
stories, right?
That's very true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, is this just me kind of seeing shit that wasn't there?
Might be, yeah.
I don't know. Like, I've always been ambitious. I think my mom's favorite story about it that is always like when I was asked as a kid on who I wanted to be, I said I wanted to be the king of the world. So that's great. Um, I'm I doubt it, like I'm still thinking a little bit on whether I could see like this whole adventurous side in myself. Like so there's a flip side to this adventurous side, and that is I'm not very, I'm reasonably physically cautious. Like I don't take like big physical risks. Like I don't ski, for instance, right?
Okay.
And that's even though I skied as a kid and stuff, but I just don't want to. I've sprained stuff, and I just don't want to break stuff. I don't want to do anything that's like physically could be physically dangerous. But like for instance, I wouldn't mind skydiving or anything that's like, hey, that's not theoretically physically dangerous. Or like the risks of something happening is super, super low, whereas like risks of something happening while skiing or mountain biking stuff are pretty high. So,
Yes.
so, so from that perspective, like when looking back, like I was a semi-cautious kid, which is like how do you kind of align that with the adventurer gene? And like I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just not that, right? I've always been reading a lot. Yeah, so maybe there's something there, right? Like you, I guess. I've always been reading massively. But as a kid, it was very much, and actually still to this day, it was very much fantasy books, and still to this day, very much still, and sci-fi and stuff. Um, but like there, maybe, but again, it's back to the retrofitting. I just wanted to live that adventure, right? I was like, hey, why do others get to live an adventure and me not? Like, let's just create this, right?
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the things that I guess you could kind of see. But as you can hear, like I'm retrofitting stuff all the while. So I'm not sure I could really see that until like going into university. So yeah.
Sure, sure, sure. And you mentioned fantasy and sci-fi books that you
Mm.
really enjoy, and of course, seeing the example of that adventure. "Ah, I also want this for myself." Is that still a genre that you're reading, or not as much these
Oh
days?
yeah,
Okay.
always. Like I actually read very little nonfiction these days. It's kind of funny, but like I read so much nonfiction during my life, and it's yeah. So that's a weird thing. I've read so much nonfiction that I feel like so much that I read is regurgitation.
Yeah,
Like especially like conceptual books. So not like so I still enjoy history books quite a lot and like stuff like Guns, Germs, and Steel, which are like more like explaining how the world is, or like what's called like how Genghis Khan shaped the world or something. There's another one like that. There are a lot of these different books, or I guess the most well known of that is the Sapiens
yeah,
book, right? All of these different books that I still find those incredibly fascinating, explaining why the world, and I still read a lot of that. But other nonfiction stuff like business books or even communication books or anything like that, I don't read a lot anymore because I tend to find the same patterns emerging from a lot of these books.
yeah.
But yeah, no, sci-fi and fantasy, like I'll devour this, and I'm a pretty fast reader, so I work my way through a lot of these.
Yeah.
um,
And there's a different level of escapism when I'm reading
yes, yes,
fiction rather than
100%.
a business book or something.
Yeah,
So
100%, 100%. That's also why I'm doing it. Like, I always read it before, like before going to sleep, or in weekends or whatever. And that it's definitely escapism. It's one of the best ways to plug out.
yeah,
Yeah,
I really think so. And of course, because fantasy and sci-fi is kind of there's an element to it that's not real, right? That's part
yep.
of the elements. And of course, you mentioned that you really love building and making things. So it's
Mm,
also
yeah,
bringing something into existence that's not already there. So do
yeah,
you consciously take any inspiration from these books that you're reading, or maybe it's just all happening?
yeah. I like that would be overinterpreting. I think yes and no, right? I mean, yeah, sure. Like I see patterns in some of the, especially the sci-fi books that are just like, hey, that would be interesting if that happened, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think that that's kind of creating any conscious inspiration. The one thing that's really interesting, and I was talking about this to my coach a few months back, is like I think the escapism from especially so fantasy books, especially, but also sometimes sci-fi books, but especially fantasy books, they always have like, or very often have epic narratives, right?
Yeah.
Narratives that are about big, 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 big stuff. And I do think like reading epic narratives and reading stuff with big, big narratives, it's like it puts your life into perspective. Now, well, of course, all of this is just fantasy. Of course, it's all just stories. But it's like, why the fuck are you worrying about like this report you have to send in tomorrow or this customer meeting or whatever? Like, hey, this is epic stuff. This is, and you're worried about that little thing, right? It's like, so
Battle
it tends
between
to.
good and evil. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, come on. So there's something there that just, I don't know. I know it's a little bit silly, but on the other hand, like if it works and if it works in de-stressing myself and in just like creating general joy in my life, then I'm happy to kind of just indulge.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah.
I have and something that I don't know what triggered the connection. There's a really one of my favorite all-time favorite books. I wouldn't call it, it's certainly not fantasy or sci-fi. I don't even know how I would describe it, but there's so many elements that cross over to, but it's called The Man Who Was Thursday, and it's by an author called G.K. Chesterton. I think it was written in the early 1900s. It's an old book, but he was friends with C.S. Lewis, he was friends with Tolkien,
Mm,
and they all hung out together. So you can
mm,
see these elements.
mm,
But it's not a very long book, and I read this book probably every year and a half. It's really delightful. So I think you should yeah.
Okay, I've got on my list now. I see it. That's awesome. It's awesome
Uh,
book.
but yeah, that's like you said, it puts things into perspective, and
Yeah.
yeah. And it also, and like when I read these kind of books, I also always find myself more reflecting on my own meaning and my own place in the world.
Yeah, I can see that. I can totally
Mhm.
see that. I can
Yeah.
totally see that.
Yeah.
So,
So nice. Okay, then I will ask a question about the future. Speaking of fantasy and sci-fi, what is one thing you're looking forward to in the future?
oh, supersonic travel. Seriously, I'm so tired of these like super long flights that we have. Like, I mean, it's like somewhat like we've been traveling at not even the same speeds because of like fuel prices and stuff. We've been traveling at slower speed and then wars, of course, and everything, right?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, um, like I'm so sick and tired of travel taking this long.
Mm.
I know there's a company in the US called Boom Supersonic or Boom, I think it's Boom Supersonic that's developing fast and sound or travel. It's
Oh
yeah,
wow. Was the Concorde the
yes, it
okay, that
was.
was the old one, yeah.
But it was the old one and they shut it down for a lot of reasons. So this is like a new better version
Okay.
of that.
Would the Concorde have been considered supersonic or no?
Yes, yes,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it was. I forget like but that was like. How long was it? Like London to New York on Concorde? See,
I can't remember the exact
2 hours, 50 minutes. Yep, 3 hours, right? London, New York. I mean, come on. And today, what's it like? Six, right? Or
yeah,
uh,
probably six or seven. Hmm.
uh,
Depending on the wind.
8 hours, it says.
8 hours.
That's insane, right? So again, we had a flight plane that could do it in 3 hours. Now we're doing it in eight, right? I mean, so yeah. If there's one thing that I'm excited about, it's that's it, because that'll make the world even smaller and travel even more. Yeah, allow us to travel even more in our lifetimes. So yeah.
Cool. I've actually never thought about supersonic travel. I've thought about like teleporters. Like, oh, that would be so
Yep.
nice. Just click my finger, go
That
back.
would be really cool, but that's probably I think that's so I mean the reason why I say this is because this is within the realm of the possible. It's just a matter of investment and
Yeah.
time. So yeah.
Yeah. Also the high speed trains. Yeah. We don't really have as many in Europe as we could, but
No, and even oh yeah, so that's a different, right? I mean, uh, that's kind of more within the realm of sci-fi. But I mean, Elon Musk has been working on these like that's the Boring company that's doing these vacuum tubes, right?
oh
So you
yeah.
can theoretically do vacuum tube trains that could also be super fast, right? That's a bit of a bigger investment than the supersonic flights. So, but anyways, yeah, that's stuff that I'm excited about.
Cool, really cool. Definitely a blend between the reality and sci-fi a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, 100%.
Well, cool. Yeah, I can't I can think of more questions, but
No, this was great. This was
uh,
super fun, Morgan. I
yeah,
really enjoyed it.
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining.